So this right now is my master plan, and we'll talk about that in a minute. This video is just going to be a quick talking head video to kind of address where Audacity Micro is right now. It's just an update video for you guys. I'm not making anything. I just want to give you a general idea of where I am going. So right now I have a couple goals that I am working towards. The first one is balancing my revenue streams. It's always safer if a business has a couple different ways that it makes money, but not so many different ways that it gets diluted and it has a hard time focusing on each one. So right now, I would say I am too laser focused on Xometry work. So there's a couple sources of revenue that I want to have. In a perfect world, I'm going to have Xometry work. I'm going to have non-Xometry job shop work. I'm going to have physical products, and then I'm going to have content creation and YouTube videos. Currently, my normal job shop work and my products is basically zero. There is a little bit of money that comes in on both of those every month, but it's like I get to go out to eat or something. The Xometry work is the vast majority of my work and the vast majority of my revenue. And then I have the content creation, which from YouTube, I am making about $100 a month right now, which means I make probably minimum wage or less. But also I am doing some content creation for a different business that we'll get to when that's closer to actually going live. But that will be about, at least for this month, for June, that content creation will be about 25% or 20% of my income, and Xometry will be about 80%. So my next big goal in terms of business strategy is to not have Xometry as my only job shop customer, but to add regular local or just offline customers. I have a couple people that I've been talking to, nothing that's really come through. I have not been hitting the pavement in my area to go get actual customers, but that will be the next step. Products will probably be the last step. I have some designs that I am working on and just things that need to be perfected before they're ready. In the past, I have been too focused on products, and I'm going to make sure I don't make that mistake. But I have some just really simple products that I am already using every single day, and I think you guys will enjoy and be able to use as well. In these four categories, they're never going to be equal. In a perfect world, the job shop stuff would probably be about 60% of my income. Xometry would be like 20% of my income. And then content creation, probably 5%. And whatever's left would be the products. Maybe if the products do well or in the future as I scale, those will become a bigger percentage. But right now, that's what I'm aiming for. So in terms of Xometry and job shop work, there was kind of a long time where I was a little bit directionless and I wasn't sure where the business as a whole was going and what my goals were. I have goals in place now, and these will be driving a lot of my future decisions. And that is my master plan, which I will make a digital version of this that you guys can actually read. But basically, my goal is to stay as a one-person company as long as I can and make it as efficient as possible with just me. I have accepted the fact that I am going to hire somebody eventually, but we'll talk at least 3 years down the line. Right now, I need to focus on optimizing what I have and building systems so that I can grow. So basically, if you look at my plan here, this is what the job shop business is, at a very high level. You have sales, which leads into quoting, which leads into, if you get the PO, programming, and then you machine it, you inspect it, and then you ship it. So basically, my goal now is to optimize and automate as many of these systems as highly as I can. So, for example, actually, Xometry is basically automating sales and quoting. So right now, I pretty much don't do those two things. All I do is upload the model to toolpath.com and figure out if it's worth my time or not. In terms of programming, that is something that I'm working on building systems around. You may have seen my videos on CAM templates. I'm actually, I think, pretty good on this. I'm sure I can do better, but my systems for programming are pretty dialed in at the moment. So I'm shifting away from that into the actual making stuff, both the machining and the inspection. And frankly, on both of these categories, I'm not doing very well right now, at least in terms of processes. I'm making good parts, but my processes to get to those parts are so much less than ideal. And part of that is like a lot of these problems can be solved by just dumping money at the problem. And I do not have the money to dump into the problem at the moment. I'm getting there. I've been growing by about 20% per month, month over month for the last 6 months. And there's no reason why that trend's not going to continue. If anything, it may pick up with that new content creation contract that I have, which since that's all digital, it's basically 100% profit. I'm just trading my time for money. There's no materials or machines or equipment that needs to go into that. So that should give me a good cash injection that I can use to get some of the actual machining stuff humming along a little bit better. So my goal right now for the rest of this year and probably a good portion of next year is to get one cell dialed in. So to me, that cell basically means one machine plus all of the tools around it to be able to make parts. So that includes fixturing and tooling and work holding and everything else. I don't know yet if inspection should be included in that individual cell or if there should be if inspection should be included as its own completely separate step. I don't know what's more efficient. My first instinct is have the inspection as close to the machining as possible so you can kind of keep that feedback loop small. But also there's something to be said in separating out the inspection from the machining a little bit so that you are kind of far enough away that you're not making dumb assumptions when you're inspecting the part. So I don't know what the best method there is. I don't know if it should be one cell or multiple cells. That'll take some testing and tuning. But the cell is basically centered around the machine. And that begs the question of what is that machine going to be? It's not going to be that office mill. I love that office mill. It has done very well for me. But that's not the end-all be-all machine, even for the kind of work that I do. So what is? And if you have talked to me about machining anytime in the past 3 years, we have probably talked about the machine I want to buy. And I still don't know what it is. I'm kind of waiting until IMTS before I make any final decisions. At this point, I think it has to be 5-axis. I think I need some sort of 0-point work holding. I think it has to prioritize small tools over high material removal rate. But other than that, I don't really know. I have debated back and forth across a million machines. This first machine that I get may not be 5-axis just for money reasons, but I am hoping that I can pull it off somehow. So I've considered everything from a mini mill with a trunnion, a new CM with a trunnion, the Penna Machine Co. Solo, a Sile machine, a Haas machine. I've looked at everything, and I just don't know what the best thing is yet. And maybe it is budget. Maybe this first cell isn't going to be one that I can replicate. But my goal is to get one working model that as soon as that is up and running largely by itself, I can just copy paste it. And I'm going to have one system that works. And, then overnight I will be able to just spend money and duplicate that and, double the size of my production capacity. And once that cell is up and running, I can just invest more money, copy paste it, and I can parallelize as much of the machining as possible into their own separate little cells that I think are all going to be identical. There's a lot of value in having different cells that can do different things, but I think for my business, I want especially since I'm trying to keep it a one-man shop for as long as possible, I think it makes the most sense to just duplicate the same thing. So, I'll buy one machine with one setup, and then as soon as I get that humming along, I can just buy the exact same thing and have it up and running on day one. I can copy paste over existing programs. Maybe there's some sort of automation I can share between the machines. But right now, my goal is to get one really good, efficient cell and just duplicate that. If we walk out to the shop, you can see kind of the starts of my first cell. This is the product of months, if not years, of experience and evolution and trying to get something that works. And it's closer. It's still not there, honestly, but it is closer. Everything is very compact and it's within arm's reach of the machine. Though my deburring stuff is still a mess. I have all of my inspection stuff in here, but I don't really have anywhere to do the inspection. And there's a lot of things that are just generally unoptimized that need work. That being said, this is the most efficient work setup that I have ever had, and I think we're still only going to get better from there. A good example of this is things are relatively clean and organized. Like if we take a count, I've got a block of material there that doesn't belong there. My safety glasses don't belong there. These don't belong here. And I have a pair of calipers out. But if you know me, the fact that I only have 4 or 5 things in the wrong place generally means it's probably easier to put things away than it is to not put them away. And that is very much what we're going for here. I didn't do any cleaning before starting this video. And I am by nature not a super clean, neat, organized person. So we're on to something. We're not there yet, but we are improving the cell layout. Of course, that'll change when we get whatever new machine in there, but we're going in the right direction. And you may have noticed in a lot of my videos, you basically only see this side of the shop. I really have more space than I need right now. I'm really using about 1/3 of my shop space. Even everything in the office is pretty much redundant at this point. I don't actually need that office room over there. So that means I have a ton of room to expand. Now this side of the shop feels kind of full, and that's just because it's full of junk that doesn't need to be here and that I could take out or squish down into a smaller space or whatever. So when it comes time to start copy and pasting my cell, I can fit a ton of them in here. Assuming a similar size machine to the office mill, which the machine I get will be bigger, I can get at least, I would say, 4 cells in here, if not more, which means this shop, which is on my property, is good for, I don't know, probably at least another 3 to 5 years of me working in here, which is huge because I don't pay rent. In fact, I get to deduct some things like mortgage interest and some of my utilities from my house. And so it is very, very economical for me to be in here. I'm not just not paying rent, it is cheaper than not paying rent where it's actively saving me money. One of the things that I will be fighting though, and I think I have a solution to, is this door. These stickers are not mine, these came with the house. This door, you can't see it right now, it's closed, but there is about 76 inches of clearance if you don't modify anything. You can get a little bit more clearance if you remove some trim, but that is a really tough limit when you're trying to move a machine in here. I did a survey of all of the different machines that I might want to buy, and the average height was 86 inches, and like basically the minimum I would need is 82 inches. So in order to facilitate that, this door is going to get modified probably right before I buy whatever the next machine is. After a whole bunch of consulting different people and talking to people who are smarter than I am, we have figured out that this board here does not need to be that big to support that section of the roof. And what we can do is we can reinforce it with some steel and then cut out a big chunk of that board. And then if we remove the garage door, we can get basically anything up to a VF2 inside this shop. And so that is huge. That was such a limiting factor with all the other machines I was buying. Being able to get those extra couple inches means I can get, like I said, a VF2. I can get any of the brother machines. I might be able to get like a Herco. It just opens up a huge range of possibilities. Now this ceiling is still at 96 inches. However, I can cut a hole and go between the rafters if I need to. I would have to do that with a VF2. I wouldn't need to do that with like a Speedio. So that limitation is pretty much erased going forward. The biggest thing I need to figure out right now going forwards is tool management. How do I keep track of tools? How do I designate tools as ones that should remain set up or ones that get torn down every time? What do I leave inside the ATC? That kind of thing. That's like what I am working on right now. I had a solution that kind of worked, but then fell apart. And right now I'm kind of at a half system. If I can just find a good way of managing that, which really shouldn't be that difficult, then I think I can reduce some of my setup times, not by a huge amount, but 5 or 10 minutes on each part will add up over time. Next thing I need to work on is a work holding. I have a bunch of things right now, like I have a bunch of these Saunders compatible fixtures, and that is working really well. It's a good modular system. It's very flexible, but it's not quite as fast as I would like. So some sort of 0 point, I think, will be my next step there. I don't really know what I'm gonna do yet in terms of inspection stuff. I have some ideas that I think start with how I generate drawings in Fusion and just generating a new drawing for every part, even if the customer supplies one, and adding my own inspection dimensions on there. I've noticed Fusion has some tools for doing manual inspections right inside Fusion. I have not played with those at all, but I think there might be something to it. I just don't know yet. I mean, the one obvious solution is just buy a CMM, but that's kind of out of the picture right now. It doesn't really help anything if you don't already have good systems in place. So I don't know. We'll get to that when we get to that. In the meantime, I mean, I can just go through the customer's drawing and measure everything, but that's not a very good repeatable system at the moment. And for the deburring setup, I think that just needs to go away. I think as I get a better machine, as I get more axes, as I get being better at being a machinist and have better processes in place, there should just be no deburring off the machine at all, or very minimal, so I shouldn't need a deburring station. I know this video is kind of not about any one thing in particular, and I promise I will get back to machining videos, but this seemed fun to record at the time, and so I recorded it. Thanks for watching. Go make stuff.